Uh, Tonight we're going to continue our series. And that was a good lesson last Wednesday, by the way. I've got some more questions on that too. I enjoyed that study. We've been talking about church has a problem, and we've been discussing different problems. We've been discussing different, hopefully, positive remedies for those problems, and hopefully tonight won't be any different than that. Tonight we're going to talk about that the church has a church problem. Now, the idea of church membership has, I think, become a misunderstanding. I was thinking about this some as John was going through a lot of the who, what, where, and how of things Sunday and talking about church membership. Got me thinking more about it, so I actually changed my lesson for this Wednesday, and we'll go back to what I was thinking about the next time I'm up here for Wednesday. But I think there is been a misunderstanding about church membership. There are a lot of folks, I think, in our society that have the wrong conception about what church membership is. Another reason is that there are more and more people who believe that membership at a local congregation is unnecessary. It's not a necessity. The church has been under attack, I think, for quite some time. In the fact that, matter of fact, it hadn't been that long ago. I think I don't know where I seen it now. It just come up on one of the feeds. It was in, I think, Newsweek magazine. It had kind of an article about it, but it says, "Forget the church and just follow Jesus." And it actually had a picture of Jesus that many people view him at, kind of the hipster Jesus. And it had a lot of information about how individuals don't want anything to do with church folks. They don't want anything to do with their doctrine. They'll take what they conceive in their mind that Jesus is teaching and just follow Jesus and not follow a bunch of church people. And that was basically the gist of that article. But I think the basic argument against the church as far as the congregation and membership, I think it's summed up in the statement, "I like Jesus, but not the church. I'll take Christianity, but I won't take the church." The church people speak about biblical things. And I don't want to be part of that group. Those church people speak about different things. They've got problems. What do they know about it? They're selfish. They're hypocrites. There's a lot of things that goes on in church, and I don't want anything to do with that. I'll just give me Jesus and don't give me the church. And as John was talking about Sunday, you can't have one without the other. You can't have the body without the head. So that doesn't make any sense, but that is what people believe. And I think it comes down to a misunderstanding or a problem, if you will, about church membership. What exactly does that mean? I think one of the biggest difficulties as families today is helping our children and our grandchildren see the importance of the church. See the importance of being part of the church. I think it's important that they see a group of people who are flawed, who don't always get it right. But I think that's okay. I think Christ intended the church to be a place where flawed people learn to be obedient, learn to follow Him, learn to love God and love each other. And I think sometimes we forget that. We forget about what the membership of church is all about and being part of the church. Now, I'm not going to talk until probably we get into the devotional part. Now, I'm not saying just go out and join a church and that makes you a member. We know that it's obeying the gospel and the Lord adds you to the church. But I'm talking about a local congregation and being a member of that local congregation. What exactly does that truly mean? Again, I think on the whole, church membership has declined. Research, and I looked this up, said out of 557 congregations, shows that 9 out of 10 churches in America are declining and are growing at a slower rate than their communities. In other words, the rate of growth of a population of a local community is much larger than the rate of growth that's in a congregation that's in that community. And I think we have to ask ourselves why. Why is that the case? Why is not being part of a local congregation, seeing the importance of doing that, why is that on the decline? I think one of the main problems is that we're failing to connect maybe with a large segment of the population. I was looking at one, I was trying to look up a lot of statistics and facts about it, and I was looking up one, and it said that it seems that we have become a generationally irrelevant. And here's what they said about this: as we arrange the generations into groups, like there's the builder generation, which is comprised of those people who were born before 1946. And following the builders are, of course, the boomers, who was from 1946 to 1963. After the boomers come Generation Xers, which is the greatest generation, 1964 through 1980. And then the next group is dubbed the millennials. Now, they were born between 1980 and the 2000s. They're the most populated generation. Now think about this. Populated generation grouping with about 80 million members. In comparison, listen to this, 2/3 or 66% of individuals that were in the builder generation, those born pre-1946, 66% of those people are Christians. Now when it comes to the millennials, only 15% are Christians. Now I could keep going down generationally, but I want to show the decline that is taking place. And maybe it's because the greatest generation, which is ours, maybe it's somewhere that we failed to teach that next generation. And then maybe that next generation, if there's only 15% of them, what's the next generation going to be? What's the next generation going to be? And I think we blame the problem a lot of times on outside forces. And what I mean by that, we may blame culture. The way the culture is now, the culture is just so awful. That's why there's not individuals becoming Christians. That's why there's not individuals, becoming Christians and being part of a local congregation. We can blame, evil and crooked politics in the government and how bad laws are getting, how bad these things are getting. We could blame all of these outside forces, but I really don't think that's the problem, because if that was the problem, I don't know that the church would even exist now, would it? Because if you go all the way back to Acts chapter 8, I believe there was a lot of persecution there and the church was growing, wouldn't it? From Acts, 5 and on. You think of all the persecution that the church was under, and the first century church was actually growing by leaps and bounds, I think, because of persecution from outside. So if it's not outside things, what is it? Well, I think that it's... the reason is, I think we need to look in the mirror. We need to look at ourselves. I think we become weak and irrelevant in the fact that we've lost our biblical understanding of church membership. And I'll be honest, I don't teach on church membership, placing membership a lot, or you don't hear it that much. I get uncomfortable because, you say words like joining a church and people get the wrong impression that you just become a part of like a country club, and we'll talk about that. I'm talking about when we become a Christian, being an active part of a local congregation. And I think a misunderstanding of that is what the problem is. I think we don't really look at it as ourselves truly what being a member of a local congregation truly is. I'm talking across the board when it comes to this. God has intended for the church, for us, to be a place that we're to serve, I think to care for others, to pray for our leaders, to learn, to teach, to give, and in some cases even give our lives for the gospel if the need ever arises. But I think how many people look at church membership, they look at it as just a place where you can join and expect individuals to serve you or to serve me, to feed us, to care for us, to entertain us, to just provide for our every need that we want. And we think that's what church membership is. And here's where I come from this standpoint. I have met with a lot of people in different congregations that I've been at, especially as the minister. They come and visit, you go talk to them, and you go visit them. They're looking for a congregation, and you start talking to them about that. And usually how the conversation goes is, what can your church do for me? What do you provide? What programs do you have? What do you have? And it's a whole list of things. And then I usually turn it around and say, okay, but what are you bringing to the table? If you're going to be under this eldership, if you're going to be a member in this local congregation, what is your part of the body? Because you're going to be part of a body, and you're going to be expected to be a functioning part of the body. So what exactly is your talent? What is your function? What is your role that you're bringing to the table? And I tell you, I get a lot of deer in headlight looks. I got a lot of mean looks. I got a lot of, I think the conversation is over. You need to leave my house. I had 2 people tell me that, because I asked what they were going to do for the church. Yeah, the church provides things for us as far as us doing things, but what exactly are we doing when it comes to a local congregation as far as being a functional member? And I think that's where the problem lies. Now, how do we fix the problem? Well, I think we need to discover, and I think maybe in some cases rediscover, what actually placing membership truly means. What does it mean to be a member? And I think the first step is to determine that I will be, if I'm a member, we'll just use our congregation because that's who we're talking to, I will be a functioning member, an active member of Center Grove, of this local congregation. I think we have to look at ourselves and say, if I am a member here, I need to be an active member. I need to be a functioning member. Now, what does that mean, and how does that play out in my life and in the life of the congregation? Well, I think membership means we are all a necessary part of the whole. Once I determine, I've become a Christian, I may be moving into an area, or I may be into this area, and I decide this is where I'm going to be on a local level, what part of that body am I going to be? Because I am going to be part of a body. So what functioning part of that body am I going to be when it comes to placing membership? Now, I think there are a number of passages that deal with the idea of church membership. And I think the longest detailed passage of this comes from chapters 12, 13, and 14 of 1 Corinthians, where Paul is writing to the church at Corinth. I think he describes this in detail, what this means. In chapter 12, he uses symbolic language to describe church membership. In chapter 13, he defines what should drive church membership. Then in chapter 14, he covers some of the issues regarding corporate worship within that local congregation. But if we look at 1 Corinthians 12, beginning at verse 12, he says, "For as the body is one and has many members, but all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jew or Greek, whether slave or free, and have all been made to drink into one Spirit. For in fact the body is not one member, but it's many." Some church leaders and some members view membership as maybe a modern business organization, if you will, concept of it's almost like you're joining a country club. I think sometimes that's how individuals view, based on conversations I've had with individuals throughout my minister career. And I'll be honest, I think sometimes that's what I think too. I think it's about, well, what am I getting out of it? Because I hear people say all the time, I'm just not getting nothing. I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm just not getting anything out of the congregation that I'm at. They're not providing enough for me. And I've really thought about that statement with myself. What exactly is a congregation supposed to provide? And what exactly am I supposed to provide within that congregation?
Well, if you're not getting what you want from a congregation, it's because you're not having any issues addressed.
Yeah.
When I have a problem, I go to John or I talk to you and say, this has come across.
And I usually say, you talk to John. No.
But he will address it, and he's done very well.
Yeah, and I tell you, there's a lot of sidebars that I think about when I'm talking about this myself. All congregations aren't a fit for all people. It just we have different personalities, we have different styles, and sometimes it's hard to interact with that, even with those differences. And just sometimes it's a fit or it's not. But we have to be honest with ourselves why it's not. Is it not a fit because of my expectations of what it should be, or my unrealistic expectations, I should say? Or is it an actual issue that I can't overcome?
John Fitzgerald Kennedy once said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. We need to have that same mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. It's... because here's how we have to make sure we understand it. The needs and the wants of Center Grove may be different than the needs and wants of a congregation down the road, because we're different. So the elders, there's a standard in which all congregations of the Lord's church should have, but there's things within that standard of different needs and different wants and different things of a congregation that may be only unique to this congregation. So elders have to look at that. They have to decide those things, and they have to weed through that based on what is the best way to feed this congregation. Not feed a congregation down the road, but feed specifically this congregation, because we're all different. And how do we accomplish that? So there are a lot of integral things that's involved, but what I want to I don't want to generalize it too much, but I want to put it down to the point of, how do I view membership when it comes to a local congregation, and do I have a realistic view of it, and most importantly, do I have a biblical view of it, or is it just what I think it should be based on me? As we look at this a little bit later, down in this chapter in verse 27, Paul says, now you are the body of Christ and members individually. I think what Paul was saying here, I believe, if you just put it in just regular Southern terms, he says, now y'all are the body of Christ, but you're all members individually. Though we're individual, we're still part of the same body. And if we're part of the same body, we have a function, an active function, an active place, an active role. And I chose to be a part of this particular local body. Now, we can get into the universal church as a whole when I become a child of God, and then I make a choice to be part of a local congregation. It's like saying, and here's where the difference in the universal and the local is. It's like saying I'm a member of the human race. Well, I can be a member of the human race, but if I narrow it down, I'm a member of the human race, but I'm also a member of the strong family. So I have within that unit my immediate family that I have an active role in. And the same thing is true when it comes to the church. I have an active role within that immediate body that I made the decision to be part of. And by my obedience, I become part of the local church, because Acts 2:47, the Lord adds to the church daily those that are being saved. Then I make a decision of a local congregation in a community that I'm in that I feel like I can have an active role in. But it's not about just what I can get out of it, which I should get something out of it. It's about understanding what my role is within that. Does that make any sense? I think we got to look at it on a proactive part of, okay, I become part of this body now. What is my role within that body?
But functionally, Ronald, most people today in most churches are functionally an audience member, which means they could just as well say, I'm going to go watch church It's really generally what most people are doing.
Yeah.
And not only that, are they functioning an audience member? They're an audience member that's looking for membership benefits. they're going, okay, I'm going to go be an audience member at this church, and that means I get this activity for my kids. I get this kind of trip
Yeah.
I get to go on. And I mean, I'm being cynical, but a lot of times that can be what people are really looking for. They want a place they can sit comfortably, be an audience member, and then get whatever benefit they can get from that otherwise.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and we're going to get into that a little bit deeper, hopefully. And this may be a two-parter. I hope I can get through tonight, but we need to look at that members comprise the whole and are essential parts of it. If you look in verse 14 of chapter 12, it says, "For in fact the body is not one member, but many." If you look at the first century church, you had the church at Jerusalem, you had the church at Antioch. They sent out missionaries throughout all the Roman Empire on how to live and to be a disciple. And all the one another verses, comfort one another, pray for one another, encourage one another, serve one another, bear one another's burdens, and so on. There's over 30 one another passages in the New Testament as part of how we function and what we do within the body. We do this for one another. We do this for one another. It's about, I'm a functioning member, so my part of this body is to do this to help this other part of the body to function properly. And they can't do that if I'm not doing my part. If I'm lagging in my part, it causes the whole body to lag. And it doesn't matter what age I am, if I'm part of the body, I still have a functioning part. Now, I'm realizing as I get older, all body parts can't do the same as they used to do, and not hardly as quick. I'm finding even lifting my arms sometimes is like my shoulders say, no, you probably don't want to do that quick. You want to take some time to do that. It may not be as easy to do it, and I may have to find different ways to do the role that I need to do, but I still have to understand I'm a functioning member. I'm an active member that I chose to be when I placed membership at this local congregation. The church is the body. Paul uses a physical body as a representation of the church. In verse 18 he says, "But now God has set the members, each one of them, in the body just as He pleased." God has set us in the body. We chose to be part of a local body, but He set us within the bodies. He gave the requirements to do that, and He expects something from us. David said this when it comes to the physical body. He said in Psalms 139, beginning at verse 13, "For you formed my inward parts, you covered me in my mother's wombs. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well." Think about the human body. Here's some more things that I looked up. I don't know this stuff just off the top of my head. The stomach digestive acids are strong enough to dissolve zinc. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Now think about that. My stomach acids can dissolve zinc. I think that's why I take so many Tums. But that's what it can do. But fortunately for us, the cells in the stomach lining renew so quickly that the acid doesn't dissolve it. That's pretty cool. The lungs contain over 300 million tiny blood vessels. That's just my lungs, okay? And if I was to stretch them out, that'd be about 1,500 miles of tiny blood vessels that I have in my lungs. The human bone is as strong as granite in supporting weight. A block of bone the size of a matchbox can support 9 tons. Think about that. 9 tons. That's 4 times as much as concrete can support. Each kidney contains 1 million individual filters, and they filter an average of around 2.2 pints of blood per minute. The muscles of the eyes that cause us to focus and move our eyes around, they do this over 100,000 times a day. Now, if you gave your leg muscles the same workout, you'd need to walk 50 miles every day to do the same thing that your eyelids do or your eyes do to move your eyes around. So in other words, everything in our body works together by design. It's by design. So God has designed the church as a body as well. He's designed it and He set it in order. He set it up so that each individual member must do their part. By design. It isn't by accident that He established and organized the church. It isn't by accident that He put it in order like He did. Each one of us have a functioning part. And when I choose to place membership in a local congregation as becoming obedient to God and being part of the universal church, and then I make that decision to be part of a local church, it means something. It's not something that I just haphazardly do and come in and sit on the pews. That's not being an active, functioning member of a local congregation. And I have to realize that, and I think that will help us to solve this church problem. Also, we need to realize that membership means that we are different, but we still work together. In 1 Corinthians 12, if we go down to verse 15, if the foot should say, because I'm not the hand, I'm not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I'm not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? If the whole body were an eye, where would be the hearing? If the whole were hearing, where would be the smelling? But now God has set the members, each one of them, in the body, just as He pleased. And if they were all one member, where would the body be? But now indeed there are many members, yet one body. And the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. Nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. No, much rather those members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. And those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, on these we bestow greater honor. And our unpresentable parts have greater modesty. For our presentable parts have no need, but God composed the body, having given greater honor to the parts which lack. That there should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care for one another. And if one member suffers, all the members suffers with it. Or if one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now you are the body of Christ and members individually. Did you notice he says we're different, but we're all one body, and we're so much one body, if one part of the body suffers, all of us suffer. If one part of the body rejoice or is honored, we all rejoice and honor. Why? We're part of the same body. And I'm telling you, even here at Center Grove, we've gone through a lot of suffering. We've had individual body parts that's going through suffering that we all have suffered. We've had individuals that have rejoiced, and we all have rejoiced. But sometimes we forget that. We forget what our role is in that and how that affects each and every one of us. It should bring us comfort. It should bring us joy. But it also should cause us to think, I've got a responsibility. I've got a responsibility to this congregation. What is my responsibility? What is my part in this body? And that comes from us looking in the mirror. So there's both unity and diversity. The parts of the body must work together for the health of the body. Imagine something. Imagine that your brain receives a signal that you're thirsty. And you see a water bottle across the room sitting on a table. But your legs say, I ain't walking over there. I'm not toting that whole body over there for you to get a drink of water. What's going to happen? I may still be thirsty, but there ain't no drink of water. My brain's got the signal that I want a drink of water. My body has a signal that I need a drink of water, but my leg said, I ain't doing it. I ain't toting y'all over there. Or what if the legs do go over there, but my arms and hands says, I'm not picking that bottle up. I'm not twisting that top off. There's no drink of water, is there? Or my mouth says, I'm not opening it up for you. Or my stomach says, you can try to get it down there, I'll throw it right back up. You ain't getting it. If any of these parts say that, I ain't getting a drink of water. You see how each one hurts or hinders the other, and if we're not doing our part, if we just stand, just imagine if my leg says, I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it. I've hauled you around long enough. If you don't lose some weight, I'm giving up. I ain't hauling you around no more. I'm mad. You ain't doing your part. I ain't doing my part. Well, don't we look around sometimes with that? I'm tired of carrying you. If you ain't going to start doing your part, I'm going to quit doing my part. You ain't doing nothing. I seem like I'm doing it all. I'm going to quit doing it. See, that's how I think sometimes, and I'm speaking generally, but I'm speaking generally for me, from here up. I think generally that's what we're saying by our actions. I look around and see if somebody else is doing it, or they don't think they're doing what I think they ought to be doing. I'm going to quit doing my part. And see, the whole body suffers because of it. Each part has to do its work, or the whole body suffers. If one part of the body doesn't do its job, the body doesn't function well. Paul says in verse 26, if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. Or if one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now, so we know I've got to be a functioning member of the body. I know that I've got to be an active member. I know that even though we're different, we're all part of the one body. We have different responsibilities. We have different works. And if I'm not doing it, if I'm suffering, everybody's suffering. If I'm rejoicing, everybody's rejoicing. If somebody else is suffering, I'm suffering. We're intertwined. We can't separate. It affects each and every one of us. And the next thing I've got to realize that it means that everything comes from a foundation of love. And here's what I mean by that. The church at Corinth was a troubled church. People were arguing, people were fussing, people were fighting. They were scrambling around to reach positions of power and authority. They were belittling to those who didn't meet up to their personal expectations of themselves or their preconceived ideas. So Paul writes this letter to reprimand their behavior, and he writes them to remind that the members that they remember what Christ designed for the church was. Basically what he's telling them, you have forgot. You know, as we talk about Paul writing, is writing about the church of Ephesus, about you've left your first love, what Jesus was saying about. Paul was saying here to Corinth, you've forgotten. You have forgotten what members of the Corinth church, local church there, is all about. You've forgotten that you are different, but you are one body, that you should work together. Now, what happens? In the middle of the teaching about the proper functioning of the body of Christ, Paul adds a section about love. Chapter 13, and we nicknamed it the love chapter. On what occasion do we usually hear 1 Corinthians 13? At a wedding. Was Paul talking about a wedding when Paul wasn't even talking about a wedding? Now, can it be appropriate about any relationship and used at a wedding? Absolutely. That's not why Paul wrote this. Paul wrote this right in the middle of a discussion about what a functioning body of Christ should look like and why. And notice what he says. He says, though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, but don't have love, I become sounding brass or clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understanding all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I'm nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. Love suffers long, love is kind, love does not envy, love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. Basically what Paul's saying, here's what you forgot. You forgot that a functioning church body operates like this. It doesn't act like you're acting. It doesn't perform like you're performing. This is what love does, and this is what causes that body to function right, because every member is doing it from the right perspective. And it comes from love. If we could abide by the principle of love, I think every church would be a healthy church. Now, a lot of people don't like to hear that. They're like, oh, you just preach about love, and it's going to be all about love, and everything's going to be all right. Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments, didn't he? I can't be saved. I can't go to heaven. I can't walk in the light if I'm not keeping His commandments. And I don't do that if I don't love Him to start with. What's the greatest commandment? And what's the one next to it? Remember what they are? Yeah, love God and love your neighbor. Why? Because you're going to do what you're supposed to do if you love God. You're going to do what you're supposed to do if you love your neighbor. You're going to be a functioning, active member of the body if we do it out of love. All the one another. I can't do any of the one another's if I don't love somebody. I'm not going to bear their burdens. I'm not going to pray for them. I'm not going to encourage them. I'm not going to do any of this. As Paul says, I could do a lot of stuff if it don't stem from love. It don't profit me nothing. It doesn't mean nothing. The body suffers. It can't function. Now, I think in many cases, we have been following, again, the wrong model for church membership. I think we have adopted this country club model instead of the Church of Christ model. The country club model, it comes with perks and privileges, and it says, come and be entertained, come and be served. I think this model is implemented in the churches, and here's what this looks like. And I can say this because I've actually had these things said to me as a minister talking to people. And they'll say things like, I write a nice check to this congregation, and I think this congregation owes me something. They owe me to do what I want. Or I might just stop keeping my money. I'll quit giving my money. If you've a preacher, been around a preacher, you know that's been said. Or someone may say, preacher, you better start seeing things my way, because one, I write a pretty big check, and two, I've got a lot of influence, and three, you could be looking for another job. I don't know how many times throughout, since 1998, I've walked up to the podium, and on the way up there, I've patted Tanya on the back, and I said, this is a U-Haul sermon here. You know what a U-Haul sermon is? You got to pack up and leave after that sermon. And I've had to, not based on the sermon necessarily, but based on what was happening that was coming. And that happens. And you got individuals that's what they think. They said, I've been a member here for 30 years. I can remember one lady telling me, because of some things were going on at another congregation that was affecting the congregation I was at, and one elder resigned, some others were leaving, and I come walking in that morning, she was sitting at the pew like this. I can tell you this, you ain't running me off. My daddy gave this land for this, and you ain't running me off. I'll stay here despite you. And I just patted her on the back, and I said, that's the spirit. I said, I'm glad you got that kind of attitude. I appreciate you. I said, I wouldn't want you to leave. I said, you're so ingrained here. Your attitude is just so wonderful. I'm glad you're here. And boy, I tell you, I could hear her teeth gnash together. And yeah, I was sarcastic. I was spiteful saying it to her. I'd never heard nothing like that before. That was my first time at full-time preaching, and that was happening. And I'm thinking, what in the world have I got myself into? And over the years, you start seeing this, and I've listened to words that's come out of my mouth and think, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe that I think the congregation owes me something. But sometimes I think we do. I think we think because the time I've spent, the effort that I've done, it owes me. What's the Bible say about my service? It's my reasonable service anyway when I make sacrifices, doesn't it? That if I do all I'm supposed to do, it's still filthy rags. I can't earn my way in my membership. I can't earn my way in my Christian walk. It's about what I'm supposed to be doing anyway. But sometimes, again, this is what we think when it comes to church membership. And this is what I'm talking about if it's a problem. How do we fix the problem? Is understanding what my role is within the membership of the church. We've got to follow the biblical model instead of the country club model. The biblical model says go and be a blessing, serve others in Christ's example. And I'm talking about within the work of the body of Christ in a local congregation. So I ask this, am I that spectator that comes to like a sporting event where the crowd watches just a part of the congregation work toward the goal of winning the game? Or am I an active part of what's going on to accomplish the goal? As Titus was saying, sometimes we're just a spectator and we watch what's going on. It's not about watching what's going on. It's about being part of what's going on. So the church has a church problem when it comes to membership of a local congregation. How do I fix that? I fix that. You fix that by becoming active members within that congregation.